This is Outside the Box with Asendia USA, a podcast educating U.S.-based brands, marketplaces, and e-tailers on international shipping topics and how they can expand their global e-commerce footprint.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of our podcast on Mexico with Outside the Box with Asendia USA. We're with our special guests, Leslie Foxhoven and Michael DiVincenzo, and now more about Mexico.
Tariff Watch 2025, right? That should be like the next news break, right? Yeah. So honestly, though, I mean, talk about being kept on your toes and put back on your heels at all times. So before we go into that, though, Leslie, I think it was you actually that just mentioned, so the $50 de minimis, just for everybody. And again, some people are going to be, watching the video, and then there's going to be listeners as well. I know it's hard without a visual, but can we just talk a little bit about the $50 de minimis and then the tax bands that come up with the different percentages based on value real quick?
So yeah, the de minimis that applies to when shipping to Mexico, that applies for shipments that are coming from Mexico. We enjoy a $50 de minimis. So it means you don't have to pay duty and tax on those shipments. So that is a benefit that I know is enjoyed by everyone. The next tax bracket is $51 to $117. Yeah. And again, those are for U.S. goods. That is you'll receive a global rate of 17% for that category, 51 to 117. And then beyond that, up to 1,000, it is 19%.
Okay.
And that's broken down it depends on the type of import as well. You can enjoy a 16% if you do a formal import, but those are things that we would help educate the customer on.
We would manage that on their behalf, right? We would. Okay, fantastic. So, and that's all in USD, those values that you gave us?
Yes, correct.
Okay, perfect. So that's great. Let's talk about tariffs. So if we want to just use, I think one of the words that comes to mind as we have embarked on this new year with a new, political state and everything else going on, but there's been a ton of uncertainty, right? And uncertainty, a lot of, hey, we're doing this, but then do we have the logistics or processes in place to facilitate the collection and remittance and everything else? So can you talk one of you guys just speak to what's going on with the tariff situation and or March 4th, there's supposed to be a release of, tariff updates, but just talk to us about what the expectations or potential expectations would be should these things take place.
Yeah, I'll give the beginning of that. I'll give that a shot.
Okay.
Well, I've lived and worked in Mexico my whole career, and certainly, I have confidence. I have real confidence in the relationship that we have with Mexico. I think that they'll get to a place where they'll negotiate those tariffs and postpone them, but we'll find that out tomorrow. So who knows? I know that they postponed the first tariff, gave them a month, and so tomorrow's the big day. I think there may be some announcements today, but President Sheinbaum she's really doubling down. So she first sent the troops to the border, which allowed us to defer that. And now she has really stepped up, if we want to call it that, to try to appease the president and show that they are really addressing this fentanyl issue and they've taken this serious. And she's now transferred 29 drug trafficking suspects to the U.S. That's a really big deal. A lot of people think, well, anyway, that's a really big move. So hoping that some of the things that Mexico's doing that we'll show that they're committed and that we can get to a place that, we don't have to impose tariffs.
Right. And I just want to make sure that just speaking to both of you as well, because there's so much uncertainty. Is it on all class of goods? Is it on, the proposed 25% tariff? Is it going to be based on the cost of goods sold or what? I think there's still a lot of questions out there, even as I scour, what's going on with, the web and different sources and such. Do you have any insight into that you could speak to?
I wish I did. I do not. They haven't given, provide, as far as we know, they haven't provided the specifics on specific commodities. I know there are certainly industries they're targeting more steel and those kinds of things, but we don't know yet other than we'll see.
I thought I could get somebody on here to just
Mike,
give a
Mike.
I thought
I could say something else that it's kind of indirectly answering your question, but it could give context to like maybe the situation itself is when they made these new tariff regulations, what Mexico did with China was put a 19% tariff on anything shipping from China directly into Mexico. Now, that's the tariff worldwide outside of the United States and Canada. If a parcel is shipped from the US and Canada, that's where you get the de minimis of 50 and then those tax brackets up to 19%. So, in turn, if Mexico was trying to regulate the amount of product coming in from China, it would be kind of counterintuitive to then put a 25% tax on goods coming from the US, because then inherently China has the advantage again. And that was kind of the competitive advantage I was speaking to earlier. So just in my mind, it would be interesting if they did put a 25% tariff on US goods versus a 19% tariff on China and the rest of the world.
I love it. I love it. Just tariff watch 2025. We have no idea.
Exactly.
We have no idea what's happening, people. Okay, so there's no resolutes, but I figured we could at least talk about it because it is an extremely hot topic and it's been a very fluid situation right from the get-go, coming out of the gates in 2025. So why not? Okay, let's pivot. So we're going to move away from geopolitical talks on tariffs and we're going to get right into what are we doing to help shippers and brands in Mexico? Let's talk a little bit more specifically about what you two have created. So I think it's really important we highlight that on pretty, high level, detailed, understandable, bite-sized type of information. So let's have at it.
Jason, you'll love this. I would say it all starts with compliance. So we work with our customs broker daily to ensure all of our customers are compliant to ship into Mexico based on the commodities they sell. And this compliance speeds up the customs clearance process, ensures less inspections, and keeps our customers from breaking any laws into Mexico. And what Leslie and I have noticed in the past with a lot of other solutions we've looked at, it's really that customs clearance piece that could hold shipments up and delay transit. So making sure all the I's are dotted and T's crossed when it comes to compliance, and our customs broker, that was the biggest thing when setting up our solution. Secondly, I would say ahead of time, the data we collect from our customers is a big piece in it. So as Leslie mentioned, the recipient tax IDs being mandatory under a T1 clearance, that's a big piece. We can't send a piece without that tax ID. Having the recipient's phone number and emails, collecting that data ahead of time, and making sure we have that so that if, say, the recipient isn't home, the final mile carriers can easily contact them, reach out to them, and make sure the parcel gets delivered as fast as possible. In tandem with that, I would say the clear descriptions of the items, things like that. That way, when the paperwork comes into customs can see exactly what we're shipping. If we're sending very general descriptions, that a lot of times will cause inspections to happen and things of that nature that slows up the cargo.
Excellent. So we had Simon Batt on, who's our worldwide CEO, and he's one of my favorite words that I had never brought up was we're being good logisticians, right? So we're creating these networks to really help and I mean just help make Mexico a doable country for B2C products going, cross border, and to take some of that worry and some of the uncertainty that, old sales adage of, what keeps you up at night, right? It's like, hey, if I'm shipping shoes into, or insert whatever product into, trying to grow the Mexico volume that I have, this is where us putting the investment, the money, time, the knowledge, the resources and expertise, this is where we can help. Right. So not only so the customs clearance, process, but can we talk a little bit about the actual network and the logistics itself in terms of the delivery and expectations in terms of delivery speed and what we're doing with that?
I'll want to add one thing too. I think that this went back to one of the comments Jason made around loss prevention. We have multiple solutions for our customers to choose from, multiple levels of service to really meet their needs. But the key thing is that every one of our shipments are delivered with a time, a delivery, and a signature proof of delivery.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
nothing is left at the door. There's nothing that goes astray. We do have customers, who can reach out to us and set up deliveries and make special arrangements for that. But we certainly don't just leave them without a signature. But I think to that point is one of Asendia's strengths in terms of how the network is available and what it does. And one of the key things, as Mike said, is making certain that we're doing the right thing with the brokers. And so whether it's our broker in Mexico City or in Laredo and how we're moving the shipments in, we've really been able to do our homework and trying to determine which gateway's best for which products and how they move the quickest for our clients. In addition to that, we're not acting with the final delivery performance really as a middleman. So these are our final mile delivery agreements. And we've been able to be extremely flexible because of that. So we all know that, one company or sometimes just even two aren't really sufficient enough to cover the entire country. There's a lot of outside delivery areas and you really need to have a partner that's an expert for those. So you can't really just cover it with two. It depends what you're trying to achieve, but we have, narrowed into the network to be able to have delivery partners that are specific for regions based on their performance. And then certainly we have a more economical options that don't really, just focus on that. So okay. I think that's the strength in the network is that a lot of those options are available.
I mean, I know that just, again, being on the sales side, this is super exciting stuff. I mean, it's something we've never had before. So very helpful and really just an excellent resource for shippers out there. And again, in that direct consumer space, going cross-border, wanting to build up the Mexico market. So I mean, Jason, is there anything that maybe I missed in the question or things that you might think to bring up before we cap it off here?
Well, yeah, I don't think anything you missed, but I think to Leslie's point, I think people need to understand how rare that is in that Mexican market. A lot of times what we've done in auditing vendors, even in that market, is they lose control because final mile usually is 2 or 3 subcontractors down, right? To where you're one company doing your brokerage, another company, accepting it at the airline and overseeing clearance, and then another company transporting it to a local hub where now it's going to go to a smaller company who's going to worry about driving that parcel 50 miles out into another area to do the final mile. So I think what makes that solution special is that we have a more direct line to the final mile provider so that it doesn't get lost 2, 3, 4 subcontracted versions diluted away from because all those companies and all those different things have to put their margins and their costs all into it in order to, and it kind of bloats the cost on things. So the shorter we're able to make that network, I think the more profitable it is for companies to use that product, right? So I think that's a really unique thing in the market, and people who have been shipping to Mexico in the past are going to appreciate that because they know how flooded that market can get really quickly.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Mike, Leslie, is there anything that you'd want to add to let listeners and viewers know before we end it for the day?
To piggyback what Leslie said before, we understand that our clients all don't necessarily have the same needs. So some are maybe more price sensitive, some are more transit sensitive, things like that. So on top of what we're doing already, we're building our network to have both ground and air options, depending on maybe what the commodity is. If it's easier to get through Mexico City, we could get the parcel into Mexico a little faster. And then on top of that, we're always trying to think of ideas to cut our transits down. So in the future, I know we'll have options maybe to go more direct into Mexico and skip some steps we're currently doing in the US. So just something to keep in mind that we're just always trying to work on the network and shave those transits down as much as possible.
I love it. When do you officially become Senior Mike? When does that happen? At what point in this development and this evolution of you professionally? I
don't know. I think I have another year before I get
another year. You're here for it. I appreciate you. I appreciate you playing along with that. All right. Well, I mean, honestly, Jason's already senior Jason, so he already got that.
Don't worry, Mike. It took me a long time too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I've seen Mike. I think I've seen Mike in action in Mexico, and he's already senior Mike.
He's
senior Mike.
I love it. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you all for taking the time to join, and for everybody listening and watching, thank you all very much for supporting the podcast. Jason, is there anything that you want to add before we break?
No, just thanks, Leslie and Mike, for coming and talking with us today and teaching us all about what you're doing. I think it's great. I think it's got a lot of value in the market, and really appreciate your time today.
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity, guys.
Share, subscribe, and download our podcast. To learn more about today's topic or for a free consultation, email us at ecommerce.usa@asendia.com. Come back for more insightful discussions on e-commerce shipping to Canada, Mexico, and worldwide.